up on today's edition of Please Bear With Me? We look at the quarterback spider charts from CFB Numbers on Twitter. It's caused some awesome discussion about Baylor's quarterbacks since 2014. Terrence Ganaway and I react to your votes for the Sweet 16 in our March Madness Baylor football bracket. And Pete Souza stops by to talk all things Baylor football as we are well into spring camp. It's a great show. This is Please Bear With Me. Let's do it. Hard to believe, Terrence Ganaway. This is week 4 of the revival edition of Please Bear With Me. What's up, man?
Man, I am living a dream, as you know. It is week 4. My kids were asking me about it. They're all excited. I put a lock on the door to make sure they don't come in and bother me. But they may one day make a guest appearance. Scott, as always, it's great to jump on this thing with you weekly. I think we got a lot of great content to cover, a really great guest to ask questions about, outside of our purview, because we look at Baylor very closely and we can sometimes have different lenses, but a guy who sees the whole conference in multiple different sports, I think it'd be really great to add to his perspective. Ask him his perspective and what that really means for Baylor moving forward across all sports. And I'm looking forward to a great show, as I am always. How are you today, buddy?
Man, I'm here living the dream. I had a good morning at church today. Then I got some coffee at Dichotomy, one of our sponsors, Dichotomy Coffee and Spirits here just across the street. If you're new to the show, I am on the 21st floor of the Alico building in the Rogue Media Sports Studio. And so I had my coffee at Dichotomy and then got over here, prepped for the show, and now I'm ready to go. Excited to talk about, we got a few topics on hand today, and as you teased, Pete Souza will join us today. Pete's pretty well known around Waco here. He was a longtime anchor at Channel 10, and now he calls a lot of Big 12 action for ESPN. And like Terrence said, great perspective of the conference as a whole. Terrence, let's get right into this bracket we've been running. So if you haven't been with us, we are running a March Madness bracket. It's that time of year, right? To determine the GOAT of Baylor football. We started with 68 players, actually, in some play-in games. So 68 players. We've whittled it down to 32. And today we reveal the Sweet 16 as determined by fan vote. And I want to quote my friend Terrence here. If you didn't vote, you don't get to complain. Because the reality is, not a lot of people voted on this round, especially compared to the last round. And there's 2 results in particular that I'm a little stunned by, and a couple others that surprised me.
Scotty, why didn't you send me the result? I mean, you did that last week.
I did.
I don't think I got the results, so it makes me feel like you're hiding something from me, man.
Well, bro, I very intentionally I sent you some of them, but I'm a little worried about how you might react to some of them here. But let's walk through them piece by piece here. Let's see how folks voted, and we will see who moves on. So the first region we will check in with is our hits region. Here is the updated view of the hits region. I know those icons might be small on your screen, so I'll talk you through it. Mike Singletary took on Terrell Bernard. And Terrence, honestly, I expected this to be a lot closer than it was. There's a lot of love in the Baylor fan base for Terrell Bernard, but Mike Singletary receiving 95% of the vote. I am not surprised he won. I am a little surprised he won by that margin. He moves on easily to the Sweet 16 to take on Joe Pavelic. I believe still the second leading tackler in Baylor history behind Singletary. Defeated James Francis by a margin of about 61 to 39% in that matchup. On the right side of the bracket there, Thomas Everett was upset by Taylor Young. Taylor Young moves into the Sweet 16 as a 10 seed. Just to be honest with you, Terrence, from my perspective, that's just a lot of people not recognizing who Thomas Everett is across the history of Baylor football.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, but Taylor has the hit that is captured here in this little icon, and I think that people remember that more than they remember Thomas Everett, which is not doesn't do his career, Thomas Everett's career at Baylor, any justice. But we talked about this last week, promising recency. People know Taylor Young and what he was able to accomplish while he was at Baylor. Played a lot of football for, but man, that's a major upset. That looks like the first double-digit seed. I mean, looking at it now, I haven't looked at the other regions, but the first double-digit seed to make it to the Sweet 16.
Yes, and I will go ahead and tease this. He is not at all the last double-digit seed to move into the Sweet 16.
Hey, that gives me hope, buddy. Hope. Let's go.
Jalen Petrie easily defeating Robert Blackman. No surprise there. Petrie, of course, the one who stayed. So our Sweet 16 matchups in the hits region. First, you do have two of the most prolific linebackers in school history. No way about it. Perhaps the two best linebackers in school history, as Mike Singletary and Joe Pa take on one another. Terrence, you said some things last week I really appreciated about Joe Pavelic's leadership. You got to be around him just a little bit.
Yeah, he's a great leader, phenomenal guy. Left it all out on the field, and I know Mike did that, but I was much closer to Joe Pa. I was, in 2009, we came in, and Robert gets hurt this year, and we really don't have a lot of offensive firepower. We still trying to figure it out, but Joe Pa just was relentless week in and week out, coming to practice, taped up, always having some kind of not injury, but pain that he was dealing with. And I think it really rallied the defense. And, like I said, many times before, even this podcast, is when you look at the legacy some of these guys built, maybe it's not really appreciated or shown or highlighted during that season. And what we saw, Joe Paul, Chris Francis, and many of Jordan Lake set a foundation for us to go and get to a bowl berth the following season, and just 2 years later win our first bowl game. So it was a lot of what these guys and how they approach practice, how they approached working out, summer workouts. Baylor was not a great football team at the time, but they still came to work and practice and played at a high level.
Absolutely. So that's your matchup there in the Sweet 16. And then the other matchup in this region, Jalen Petrie taking on Taylor Young. Perhaps two of the most well-known, I would just say, like, captains, leaders, both setting an example with their relentlessness, I think is the word that I would bring to mind for both of these guys on the field, Jalen Petrie and Taylor Young. Let's move on to the big man region here. We got a lot to get through today. So big man region, this is what it looks like. Andrew Billings did defeat Bill Glass by a wide margin. Not much of a surprise there, especially when we're talking about recency bias. Like, Bill Glass played a long freaking time ago, y'all. A long time ago. Certainly one of the greats in Baylor history, but Andrew Billings defeating him easily. Below that, what you see in a closer matchup, I was surprised by this result, Terrence. Spencer Drango. Spencer Drango defeats Daniel Sepulveda in a matchup of two just absolute legends. Of course, Sepulveda, it was hard to slot him in this tournament. He did make the big man region as probably the biggest punter we will ever see as a former linebacker converted into punter. But Drango getting the win here. So he and Billings going up head-to-head here in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, it's going to be a matchup. They played against each other, so they have a lot of stories to share. This is going to be a fun one to watch as it progresses throughout the week. I think I have Billings here. Drango is a all-time great Baylor Bear, but I'm going to take Billings.
And then in the other side of the bracket, a little bit, Terrence, not an upset, by the way. I seeded it, but I think you and I both predicted Cyril Richardson might get the votes over Jason Smith, especially because of this recency bias we're talking about. Jason Smith, 57 to 43%, edges out Cyril Richardson, and Jason Smith moves into the Sweet 16. There, he will take on James Lynch in one of what was, it really surprised me, Terrence, the closest matchup, I think, of this round was James Lynch just barely defeating Sean Oakman by just a couple of votes. James Lynch did break Sean Oakman's sack record. I feel like I'm surprising people by reminding them of that, but he broke it and broke it by quite a few. So like it surprises me that was close. But now we're left with this in the Sweet 16. Jason Smith taking on James Lynch. Two all-timers, no two ways about that.
Yeah, I wish we had a demographic of who all is voting and what timeline they watch Baylor Bears. Jason Smith, him edging out Cyril, is surprising because Cyril played in one of the best eras of Baylor football. And Jason, he was a great athlete on a really, really bad team, super talented and athletic, and got an opportunity to play in the NFL. But when you look at James Lynch and what he does, and has done on the field, I think more people are going to watch and be drawn to some of the things that he was able to accomplish here within a few short years ago.
Absolutely. Looking at the next region, our speed region. Terrence, we'll talk in just a second about how many of these guys you think you could beat in a 40 of the guys left. But we cornerbacks have been eliminated from this tournament with this round as Corey Coleman defeats Ray Crockett, the only 100% vote of this tournament so far. Corey Coleman received 100% of the votes in that matchup. I hate that for Ray Crockett, but are any of us surprised that the Blitnikoff winner cleaned up? Not really. On the other side below him there, we had a really intriguing matchup. And Terrence, you and I called this one correctly. You had a 12 seed Denzel Mims going up against a 13 seed Xavier Howard. And it was Denzel Mims edging out Xavier Howard to get that spot. And we talked about it, Terrence. If you think about like clutch moments, plays to win a football game, there's not many guys in Baylor's recent history who come to mind as much as Denzel Mims.
Yeah, as I look at this graphic, there is a ton of big play ability. And when you talk about what we needed during the time when Denzel Mims was on campus, he edges out a lot of people when there's a jump ball. And I think this was a jump ball matchup, and he took it right out of the arms of Howard. So kudos to him. It's going to be very tough going against Corey Coleman, but that's a really intriguing matchup as well.
Here's what I love about this matchup too, Terrence. It's two, and we're going to talk more about this when we get to these quarterback spiderweb charts. It's really hard, I think, to gauge value because you can't deny Corey Coleman's greatness, his numbers, his Blitnikoff. Like, you can't deny that dude was like one of the greatest receivers college football's ever seen. At the same time, Corey Coleman played with Seth Russell. He played with three other receivers who were threats around him, like, a KD Cannon, guys like that. He played with Shock Linwood and Johnny Jefferson and guys like that in the backfield. And so when I compare Coleman to Mims, in 2019 especially, was playing with Charlie Brewer at not his best. He was really the only big threat at wide receiver. Tyquan Thornton, I think a freshman then, still kind of coming into his own. But Denzel Mims played, I think, with a lot less around him and was still able to put in so many great performances we remember.
Yeah, you're right about that. Corey Coleman had a team around him, a really good defense as well. I don't care how you look at it. Corey Coleman was exceptional every part of the field. Whether it was a jump ball he had to go get, whether it was a short, big route, in route, or just getting him the ball out in the space, he made people miss, and then he turned on the Jets, and it was really special to watch. Denzel Mims caught a ton of great contested balls, but the two types of receivers they were is totally different. In my opinion, Corey Coleman is the best receiver that ever played for Baylor football.
And I think that's most people's opinion, which was why he's the first seed. But he goes up against, on the other side of this bracket, you've got two other guys who certainly have an argument for the same claim. Kendall Wright does defeat Gary Baxter to move into the Sweet 16. Again, quite easily about 90 to 10% on that vote. And then Terrence Williams, also not really in a surprise, beats KD Cannon very handily. And so now you've got this Sweet 16 matchup between two guys that played a lot of football together at Baylor. Kendall Wright has the career numbers that have still not been topped by any receiver in Baylor's history. He's got the receiving record, 4 great seasons in his senior year. He put up great numbers. And then Terrence Williams, 1 season after Kendall Wright leaves campus, puts up the most yards a Baylor receiver has ever put up in a single season with over 1,800 yards, was a runner-up for the Biletnikoff Award. And so you've got 2 stars here. And Terrence, you did play with both of them.
Yeah, these guys were special. And a lot of the success was, I talked a little bit about it with Joe Paul, but the way these guys approach practice, they worked hard in and out of the season, spring ball, summer conditioning, spring conditioning or winter conditioning at the time. And it was just how they approached the game that really separated them. And when you talk about the young people that came after them, Antoine, Katie, Jay Lee, who we talked about on the first show, and then obviously Corey Coleman and all these other receivers, it was because of what these guys were able to do in practice. When there were several times on recruiting visits or just dropping in, those receivers that I just mentioned walked in and saw how we practice at Baylor. And I think it made them feel, a part of something. Like, this is bigger than just coming here, putting up a bunch of stats and then going. It's about building a legacy. And everyone on this list, I think, has done a really good job of doing that. And there's several people that are not, that had tremendous impact. We talked about that with Chris Platt a couple weeks ago. So, I'm excited about this matchup. Kendall Wright is a solid number 2. And you said earlier which ones I'm probably faster than. It's probably only Kendall. Denzel ran a really good 40 at the combine, I believe. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think he ran like a 4.3, maybe a 4.4, low 4.4. But 4 receivers, no cornerbacks. It just tells you what type of mindset college era fans are into now, where offense seems to sell tickets and it also wins ballots.
Super, super true on that, dude. Let me think. I had one more comment about Kendall and Terrence. Oh, I was going to say, I think the other thing I like about this matchup between Kendall and Terrence, and I'm going to look this up before next week when we get the results, but if you look at Corey and Denzel, I think we're both like borderline 4-star guys. Kendall and Terrence were both guys who I feel like were not properly rated coming out of high school. I feel like they didn't get enough love and came in under Art Briles pretty early in Art Briles' time, right? Kendall literally in that first group he brought in, and both left campus as bona fide NFL players, I think that they're some of the best stories in Baylor football in terms of come in a little underrated, chip on your shoulder. And you talked about that work ethic, right? They both turned that into successful NFL careers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. These guys, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And they came in hungry at Baylor and left as legends.
All right, Terrence. I need to confess something.
Saving the best for last. What's up? Talk to me.
We're saving the best for last, Terrence. But I need to just prepare you for something.
Oh man.
So we had 5 quarterbacks and 3 running backs facing off to see who would make the Sweet 16. And before I put up this graphic, I just need you to know I don't agree. But the way that we have laid this out, we have 4 quarterbacks and no running backs in the Sweet 16.
Scott, this is trash. If you look at what I just saw a glimpse of the left side, I didn't even get to the right side. But Walter Abercrombie should definitely be on that list. And I think Shock Linwood was in there too. So Shock is an all-time great. Who did he go up against? Listen, bro, this is a travesty for all you Baylor fans that voted. I am very upset. Not just at me. You know what, man? Forget this, Scotty. I can't do this, bro. I'm not gonna be great for you, man.
What? What? Terrence Ganaway is not on StreamYard. This is not a drill. The dude logged off of StreamYard when we threw up this graphic. Backfield region, 4 quarterbacks in the Sweet 16 of our tournament here. No running backs. Well, I guess I'll review the matchups here, and we'll see if Terrence comes back. I hope he comes back before Pete gets in here. All right. Here we go. Backfield region. Yep, indeed. In that first quadrant on the top left, RG3 did defeat our friend Terrence Ganaway. Terrence Ganaway did get 28.5% of the vote. So thank you to those of you who voted for our co-host TG here. But RG3 does move on, and he will face Bryce Petty, who did defeat Walter Abercrombie in what I would call an upset. Walter Abercrombie, I called him in our first week here the elder statesman of Baylor football, and Bryce Petty does defeat him by about 2/3 of the vote. So Bryce Petty moves in over Walter Abercrombie. On the other side, Seth Russell, I think just purely, if we're being intellectually honest, in an upset, defeats Don Truhl. But again, Don Truhl played so long ago. I don't know how many people that watched him play are still around. And certainly, I don't think any of them are watching our show or voting on this. So not surprised that Seth Russell moves on. And then on the bottom right there, you see that our friend JJ Joe, we miss him, we love him, with the upset victory, and this is definitely an upset victory, over the school's all-time leading rusher, Mr. Shock Linwood, who, as we said last week, probably unfairly remembered because of a tough final season here in Waco, but an all-time great, again, the school's leading rusher. So the matchups that we will have in the Sweet 16, on one side, Bryce Petty and Robert Griffin going at it. I have seen people on X in the last decade try to argue that Bryce Petty was a better than RG3. Oh, well, he won 2 championships, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that it's really intellectually honest if we're like, hey, you got to win 1 game. Which of these guys are you taking? I'm taking Griffin in a heartbeat. But all due respect to Petty, 2 legends there going at it. And then they will face the winner on the other side, 2 underdogs on this region that have made it to this point, Seth Russell and JJ Joe. Again, both guys known for being incredible athletes, not just quarterbacks, but both guys also known for being very accurate passers, not just guys who could run the football, but accurate deep ball throwers, both of these guys as well. And so that is our backfield region. And it does look as though Terrence Ganaway has come back into StreamYard. Hey, bro, what's up?
I know I'm not mad at you, man. I'm not mad at you. But when you think about the success of all 4 quarterbacks that are going to make it in the athletic region, whatever region they're calling themselves now,
backfield.
Whatever. It's not a backfield without a running back. I can tell you that much. But when you think about it, every successful year that a quarterback had, we had a 1,000-yard rush. So you do all math and you figure out which one, chicken or the egg came first, which one is more important. I can tell you right now, running the ball is and always will be the most important aspect of a football game. And it is why the Philadelphia Eagles just won the Super Bowl, and they won it in a convincing fashion because they could dominate the line of scrimmage and run the football. And I did it when I was there. Shock did it when he was there. And there was a ton of athletes after me. Abram Smith did it again with his team. Every quarterback we're going to talk about later on in this segment needed a 1,000-yard rush to be half decent. The only argument is that Robert Griffin may not have needed it, but he dang sure had a 1,500-yard rusher. So, anyways, man, I digress. It's just frustrating that, fans need to come, watch a football game with me and stop looking at all the highlights on ESPN after the game. So, I'm not mad at you, but I am upset.
Yep, no running backs. So running backs, cornerbacks are the 2 positions that have been eliminated from this tournament. We do still have linebackers. We have one safety left, Jalen Petrie. Couple of offensive and a couple of defensive linemen. But yeah, corners and running backs. And by the way, Terrence, I'll just say when I think about football, those are two of the most demanding positions on the field, really and truly, are those two spots. So it is a shame, but that's where we're at. So again, tomorrow morning, I will have the link up to vote on the Sweet 16. I think I'm going to do something I didn't want to do, Terrence. I really didn't want to put these votes on Twitter because I wanted people to engage with the show a little deeper and click a link and make an effort and subscribe on YouTube here. But I'm going to go ahead and put the next few rounds on Twitter, and then I think we'll get more votes. I think that's going to make it interesting to see how those results come in. So we'll put the poll on Google. We'll put the poll on Twitter, and we will evaluate who moves into the Elite Eight next week. I did want to throw up this graphic, Terrence, because in week 1, I threw up a graphic of the unanimous All-Americans who've played for Baylor all time. This is how they stand now. We have actually eliminated 5 unanimous All-Americans in Baylor's history. Bill Glass, Thomas Everett, Santana Dotson, Daniel Sepulveda, and Cyril Richardson now all eliminated, and 5 of our unanimous All-Americans remain. Mike Singletary, of course, and then 4 of the 5 most recent, T. Will, Corey, Spencer, and James Lynch. And again, that's just an interesting, when we're comparing these guys across eras, to see the guys who were not just consensus All-Americans, but unanimous. Like every publication in the country was like, yup, All-American. Like that's a pretty elite group. And so half of them have been eliminated as we go into the Sweet 16.
Wow, that's really special. And then Santana didn't even make it out of the first round going up against Sean Oatman. It is we had, you think about some of the people that have been All-American. Obviously, this is unanimous, but I feel like there's some snubs at unanimous All-Americans as well as we look back through Baylor's recent history, and I'm sure decades before then too. But we got 5 in the last 16. Let's see if one of these guys can be unanimous and win it all here.
And what's crazy, Terrence, is like Singletary, I think, has a good shot at that. But outside of that, like Griffin wasn't unanimous All-American, right? That's not because he wasn't worthy. It's because he had a guy named Andrew Luck that played at the same time, right? Petrie, I thought was unanimous. He was a consensus All-American. He was not unanimous. So you've got some really, really stellar dudes that weren't, which is just fascinating to me. All right. Enough about our tournament. Go vote starting tomorrow. If you don't vote, you can't complain. We'll see who moves into the Elite Eight. I wanted to get to this. We talked about this last week, Terrence. I want to get to these quarterback spider charts. So let me, I've got several graphics here ready. We're going to look at all of these together. Because I just thought this was so interesting, and I want to give all the credit to the account CFB Numbers on X. Put all of these together and generated this tool online. It's free. You can go look up any quarterback who played between 2014 and present day and get these spider charts that will show you here, that show you their efficiency. It shows you how effective and efficient they were at various things. You'll see how these look if you haven't seen these yet in just a minute. I did want to mention I wanted every Baylor quarterback between 2014 and now, and these are the guys who took snaps but didn't have enough snaps to make the chart. So Seth Russell as a backup in 2014, Chris Johnson, who started a game or two there in 2015, Anu Solomon, who started the first game in 2017, Gary Bohannon, who took snaps in 18 and 19, Zeno, who had to play quite a bit in 19 when Brewer and Bohannon were injured, Chapin in backup duty in 21, and Drones on backup duty in 22. They did not have enough snaps to be considered for this tool. So they are not here, but let's look at everybody else from 2014 to present. I want to go through them year by year, make a couple observations. Terrence, you jump in whenever with your thoughts as well. And then I want to put some next to each other, because I think this is a very objective way to compare a lot of players we love and really see who stands out. And it's some of the results are actually fascinating and surprised me. Okay, so here's first 2014, Bryce Petty. Obviously, this dude was absolutely cooking that year. You do see a big hole there in late down efficiency. That's that big gap there at the bottom. And so if you think about those Art Briles offenses and how often it was, big play, big play, big play, chunk play, chunk play. What this tells you is when Bryce Petty got into third and fourth down, compared to the rest of his peers, I don't know that that's a reflection on Petty as much as the offense and the style of offense we were running. But that's the only big hole. That's a pretty good spider chart. Now you move to 2015, and Terrence, this is that year when we're like, we were on path for a natty, right? This is Seth Russell in 2015, that year that Corey Coleman scored a bunch of touchdowns and won the Biletnikoff, right? I mean, this is almost a perfect chart, almost a perfect chart. There's a little bit of a gap there at the top, and that's for turnovers. So, when you have an explosive offense, sometimes you're going to turn the ball over. But Terrence, that is almost a perfect circle.
Yeah, that is, man. That's Heisman. That's national championship if given the opportunity. We all know what happened to Seth Russell. I think if he doesn't get hurt, he goes down arguably as the best Baylor football player ever to play. And, it's going to be what if for the rest of our lives. We're going to tell our grandkids about, in 2015, Baylor had it. Hopefully we get some national championships at BU before our grandkids come around. But this is spectacular. You talked a little bit about Bryce Petty the last slide of graphic. One of the things there is, when Art Briles' offense got into those third and long situations, typically what type of plays were called were, we got to get 10 yards. Art Briles' mantra was, let's get a first down. Let's get the first down of the drive, and then let's open it up. Now, there's some times where you're in the game and the flow of the game it's first and 10, a new fresh set of a new series, and you just launch the ball deep. However, when Briles got into these 3rd and 10 situations, you don't really have a play in the playbook for that. No coaching in the college has that. No coaching in the NFL. So you want to get 3rd and medium. So I wonder how many of these late down plays, efficiencies plays, were 3rd and 6 or more, because then that graphic will make a lot more sense. But surprising that he doesn't fill out some of these other areas. Knowing how proficient he was, and he led Baylor to 2 back-to-back to a championship. So the only quarterback that's done that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. That chart was one that surprised me as well. So then after Seth Russell's just like unbelievable, nearly perfect chart in 2015, of course, he tragically goes down with that neck injury, and Jarrett Stidham comes in. And Terrence, this was one that surprised me too. Jarrett Stidham comes in and almost doesn't miss a beat. Like you see the right side of that chart, there's some rush yards that are lost there. The sack rate plummets. That's to be expected with a true freshman. But otherwise, Jarrett Stidham in that same offensive system with Corey Coleman and those boys, almost a perfect quarterback as well.
Yeah, man. When you see this looks like youth, slower decision-making, understanding and processing. Seth also had a chance to back up Bryce Petty, so he was in the system longer. This being Jarrett Stidham's freshman year, and coming in, that 2015 team,
that team was so insane, bro. That's why this, Jarrett Stidham went to Auburn and was great, like a great quarterback. But the fact that he was probably still 18 when he stepped on the field with this team and put up a chart that looks like that. Like, it says a lot about Stid, but it says a lot about that whole offense, bro. Like, again, Corey Coleman and all those guys. Yeah.
Well, you talk about that offense. Remember, Chris Johnson came in and he beat
Oklahoma State on the road.
And on the road for the first time in program history. So no knock against Chris Johnson at all. But that's how loaded that team was.
Amen. No, great point. Great point. All right, let's move on. So again, we don't have Chris Johnson's chart. He didn't have enough snaps, but we go to the next year, and you do see here, Terrence, and I think we could all see this on the field as it was happening. 16 just wasn't as explosive as 15. You did lose some playmakers off that 15 team. And remember, 16, let's just be honest, y'all. 2016, probably the hardest year in Baylor football history because you've fired your head coach, but you've kept the entire staff, including his freaking son, right? We're almost a decade out. Let's just be honest about this. Horrible situation. And Seth Russell displayed outstanding leadership through that, trying to keep the team together and lead well. Still played very well. This is a good chart, but you can see the regression. I think some of that was players you lost. I think a lot of that was just, remember we started that season 6-0 and then I think finished 0-6 just because the wheels kind of fell apart. And of course, Seth gets hurt somewhere in there, week 7 or 8 as well. But this is what his chart looked like. So again, you go from 15, it looks like this. 16, I scrolled a little too far here. 16, you lose a lot of explosiveness. And then I think reflecting that as well, Zach Smith steps in after Russell gets hurt, and his chart looks like this, which again, not horrible because if you think this is bad, we're about to see some bad in the next few years here. But Smith playing efficiently and okay, but you can really see the regression again, the back end of that season as let's just be honest, like I think that whole staff and that whole team were just ready to get out of it.
Yeah, they were done. I think we were top 7, 8 in the country going down to Texas. It's 6-0. We're about to go beat the brakes off of Longhorns, and then a news article launches, and I think it caused a lot of the staff and players to just space out. Texas had been sitting on somebody had been sitting on this article. I don't know if it's Texas, University of Texas are rightfully to blame there or not, but it did get released that week. I think it was a board member. There was so much going on in drama that week, and I do think that everyone checked out. And for about 6 weeks, it was tough to watch Baylor football, and then we played a 9-3, 10-3, or whatever team out of from Boise, and we beat the brakes off of Boise in the bowl game. And so it's like that was that coaching staff's final interview before they hit the open market. But man, it was a tough season, and it affected people not only on the field but off the field as well.
Big time. And if you need any more evidence of just how good that Briles offense was, Zach Smith, who I think is a good college quarterback. I don't think the guy was a slob by any means. Watch what happens as soon as the Briles squad leaves and Matt Rule gets in for year 1. And Terrence, I love Matt Rule, but watch what this chart does. Boom. There's Zach Smith 2017. Now remember, Anu Solomon started week 1. Was absolutely atrocious in that opening game. And Zach Smith actually, I think, came in that opening game and then was the starter for about 6 or 7 weeks there. But, I mean, this is what a bad chart looks like. There's just nothing here. And then if you think that's – and, one of my best friends says, Zach Smith, right quarterback, wrong time. Like, could have been a Bryce Petty and a Briles offense easily. But in this – and remember how bad that offensive line was in 2017 too. Just horrible. But then if you need evidence of how dynamic Charlie Brewer is, watch how this jumps. When Charlie Brewer becomes the starter, boom, suddenly you've got a good chart again. And most of that is just because he was so dynamic with the football.
Yeah, he had incredible extended plays, didn't care about getting hit. And I don't know if he was super mobile, but he was a little bit more agile than Zach Smith.
Zach Smith was a statue, yeah.
Yeah, he had a major arm, Zach Smith did. But, man, this is not surprising knowing how aggressive Charlie Brewer played and how he just played to the whistle. And, that 2017 year, I try to forget, honestly. You already know how I feel about some of that stuff. I think it was forced. I think it's trying to, figure out, best way to make a compelling story. And I think it was a setup. There's no reason why Baylor should have ever went 1-11. But that's just me.
Well, I'm with you, except that I think Charlie Brewer was trying his damnedest to win every football game, and you see that here. Then Charlie Brewer really comes into his own 2018. I know we only won 7 games that season, but we get another. I mean, this is the best looking chart since Seth Russell. When we
Yeah.
get to 2018 here, Charlie Brewer having a really good season. And then 2019, I was surprised, Terrence, because we did go, remember, we went to the Big 12 championship game and lost to Jalen Hurts in 2019. But Charlie Brewer, you start to see the regression. Watch this. He starts to regress just a little bit. He starts dealing with some of those injuries, starts to regress just a little bit in 2019. And again, I don't have Bohannon or Zeno's charts from 19. They didn't have enough snaps. But I was a little surprised. One of my surprises was to see that 19 chart take a step back in that way.
Yeah, that's a weird year. I mean, there were several games that they could have went either way, maybe 4 or 5 games that year. And the only decisive game there was Oklahoma when we played them that night game, probably early November. I can't remember. And we were up on them 28-3 and just fumbled the bag. And I really thought we had a chance. Chris Platt was on the show, and I wanted to ask him, but I did not want to bring this up. How in the world did he get caught? Because I think in every other situation,
well, he got caught. That was a different game.
That was in the Big 12 championship.
That was in the Big 12 championship. He got caught from behind, and we were like, "How did that just happen?"
Yeah, so I was talking about 2 different games, but the Oklahoma game was super decisive. All the other games were like we played well enough, but the defense was better in 2019 than it was in 2018. And then we played Oklahoma again in the championship, and I think Chris Platt catches that ball, and it feels like everyone in the stands rose up because we knew what was going to happen, and he gets caught, and we can't finish it out. And Oklahoma goes on to win another Big 12 championship. But man, what a fun year, and a lot of quarterbacks played that year.
Yeah, they did. It was almost like 2015 all over again. And then, of course, we're just going to breeze through this one. Terrence, the worst year, 2020, horrible. Dave Aranda's first year, COVID restrictions. Larry Fedora was like a total bust. Brewer, I think, was playing through multiple injuries at this point. Terrible. I don't even want to dwell on this. We're just going to move on because 2021, my guy, I think the most underrated guy of the last decade. I liked that this spider chart, I think, shows you how good Gary Bohannon was. Kind of like Petty, late down efficiency, not very good. And I was a little surprised that the turnover efficiency was a hit. But other than that, this is a good chart for a guy that I think played kind of above his weight in 2021.
Yeah, Gary Bohannon was so reliable for us. There were several plays. I remember the Oklahoma State game in Oklahoma State that I felt like we could have won. There were some early reads that he just didn't make. I don't know if it was in the scheme of things, but he didn't make it. And they were just trying to figure things out. But Gary Bohannon, I think we wish we had him back in 2022.
Look, you ready? You ready? Boom. There's 2022, Blake Shapen.
Yeah.
So people have acted like this was my hot take in 2022, and everyone acted like I was crazy. And someone was tweeting smack at me about this like 3 weeks ago. I said when Gary Bohannon left, why in the world did this guy who just led you to a conference championship, you're going to replace him with the kid quarterback? Why? Because his football looks prettier coming off his hands? Like, I did not understand. And the chart, I think this vindicated me a little bit. I was like, look, like, I know Blake Shapen's a good prospect, but the step back is like, there's just no denying the difference in those two charts.
Yeah, I think we needed Blake. I think we needed Gary in 2022. But I'm not getting paid to make coaching and personnel decisions. And but I think his leadership would have been huge for us, and then obviously what he could do on the field.
I'm going to rush through these last few because our esteemed guest is waiting in the wings. We're ready to get to him, but we're gonna enjoy this. Blake Shapen
it got better.
Terrence, straight up, this was the other most surprising chart to me. I didn't.
By the way, take your time. I'm enjoying this.
Okay.
I'm enjoying this very much.
I didn't realize Blake played so well in 2023. I had no idea. This chart surprised me. And again, kind of like 2016, like a season where you start hot and then really falter down the finish. But a pretty good chart there for Blake Shapen in 23. I was surprised there was enough snaps to have this. And just in case you want to see that maybe backup duty while you're injured doesn't tell the whole story, compare that to Sawyer Robertson's chart in 2023, where really nice look there on the turnovers, but everything else was a struggle. That was interesting to me as well.
Do we have Sawyer last year?
We do. And this dude, I have been kind of writing for Sawyer Robertson since this past season, but this chart shocked me because it is, again, almost a perfect chart.
Well, listen, this is my argument with Sawyer, and this is my argument with Shapen in 2023. I thought Shapen played really good in 2023. It was handicapped by poor offensive play calling. And we should have a spider chart of how bad the offensive play calling was in 2023, which eventually led to the departure of, Grimes. And he went on and did something else at Kansas. And I think Kansas struggled both offensively and defensively this year. But when you look at 2024 Sawyer, I said this in text with you and a couple other buddies. I said this maybe on the first episode. I said Sawyer needed Spavital more than Spavital needed Sawyer. And I think this chart 100% paints the bullseye that, but listen, Sawyer's a good quarterback. I'm not taking anything from him. But is Sawyer a better quarterback than Bryce Petty? This chart will say he is. I don't know. This chart will say he's Daniel Seth Russell 2.0. And I didn't see Seth Russell 2.0 last year. My take on offense this year is he's going to have to make a big jump. And I think the confidence of offensive coordinators giving you, hey, you're the starter January 1st throughout the year, I think that's going to help him. But I hope that he lights it up and prove me wrong. But I truly believe that Sawyer needed Spavital more than Spavital needed Sawyer.
I'm going to tell you why I disagree. I think that argument would hold water if Bryce Petty had a bad offensive scheme, because you're arguing that the scheme is holding up the quarterback here. But Bryce Petty was literally playing for Art Briles. Like Bryce Petty was playing in the best offensive scheme of the time and put up a good chart, but not this. And I don't like. I understand. Yes, I would agree. Spavital would have made Shapen look better. I think Spavital, now I'm thinking as good as Gary Bohannon played, what could Spavital have made Bohannon look better? Like maybe so, but I just don't think you get this kind of chart without a really unique talent at quarterback. And let me show you what I mean, Terrence. This is how I'm going to kind of end this segment. I've put these into tiers because I was just interested in how did these teams compare. So tier 1, I just called it, this is all world level quarterback play. And by that, I mean, I think you could take these guys in these seasons, put them in just about any system. They're probably going to kill it. And with the right defense in line, they're probably competing for championships. This is what the best charts look like. Seth Russell and Jarrett Stidham both in 2015. Again, we agree, like top to bottom, that's probably the best Baylor team that's ever taken the field. And I think most Baylor people, we'll get Pete's take on this in a minute as not a born and bred Baylor person, but most Baylor people think that 2015 team is national championship bound if Seth Russell stays healthy. But look at Sawyer Robertson's chart, Terrence, right next to Seth Russell's there on the top. Like that is lights out, nearly identical, bro. It's nearly identical. And again, I was talking about Seth Russell's weapons in 2015. Sawyer Robertson, all due respect to Josh Cameron, Bryson Washington, Seth Russell had the school's all-time leading rusher and the school's only Biletnikoff winner. Like, what are we talking about? Like, so what Sawyer did here is awesome, bro. It's awesome.
Listen, national championship to start the season off 2-4. I don't want to hear anything about Steph Russell and Sawyer Robinson.
Wait, but bro, time out. He didn't start. He didn't start 2 of those games.
Well, that's not my fault. Okay, he was still 2-2, whatever you want to call it, bro. I mean, if you give, I'm not trying to defend Bryce Petty at all. If you give Bryce Petty the opportunities, I thought Sawyer played lights out 95% of the season when he was in team the starter. There were balls and opportunities that he flat out missed. And I don't think Bryce Petty misses them any day of the week. And so, listen, this is okay. This is okay. A great year. And this goes off on a very 6-0 run. Like that would lead to a 6-0 run. I'll take it any day of the week. We'll see what it does next year.
Okay, but we're gonna put Bryce's chart back up here because my second tier here was really freaking good with some holes. Okay, that's kind of the next tier of guys we got here. And so here you've got Petty in 14, Shapen in 23, Bohannon in 21, and Seth in 16. Bro, Sawyer's chart would tell you he was more efficient on passing downs. He was more efficient on early downs than even Bryce Petty. Like, I hear you on he didn't complete every throw, but bro, like, I mean,
let's go back and watch the film, man. Yeah, these charts are great. I want to see these charts against like the top 10 quarterbacks of college football. The last how many? What is this? 10 seasons of data, right?
Yeah.
So I want to see the top 10 in 2015 all the way to the top 10 in
that'd be interesting
in 24, because what I suspect is you'll see a lot of charts like this in guys winning games. At the end of the day, that's what coaches are measured on. They're not measured on if somebody has a late down efficiency. They're measured on if they can win games. And Bryce Petty won 20 games in 2 years. Name another quarterback that can do that.
Listen, Petty and then Bohannon won 12. Like, Bohannon is the other guy that had all the wins. So, like, you're right. Like, the 2 most winningest quarterbacks in these charts are on this slide. Like, that's a good point. Just to keep the comparisons going, my tier 3, mediocre, but good enough to win games. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Mediocre, but good enough to win games. You've got these 3 charts. It's 2 Brewer charts and a Zach Smith chart in 2017. Again, kind of like your middle, the road charts as far as what we just looked at. And then my last tier, just bad. Like, there's no 2 ways about it. These just look ugly. And that would be Charlie Brewer in 20, Zach Smith in 17, Shapen in 20. Sorry, Shapen in 23. 22 is that good chart. 23 is this chart. No, I got it mixed up. 22 is here, Shapen, and then Sawyer, again, super limited minutes
there's your boy. There's your boy.
Oh, yeah. And we found out later he's injured and all that. So,
well, we found out later that the offensive coordinator was not very good either. And like I said, Sawyer needed Spavital more than Spavital needed Sawyer. Listen, I'm not knocking Sawyer. He's a great quarterback. He was instrumental into Baylor's run last year. The guy felt like he was the only one that played in the bowl game last year. So he is a dynamic player. These charts, they're just that. They're charts. And I think at the end of the day, what you're graded on is wins and losses. Now with NIL, maybe you get paid on a spider chart looking really good. So if I'm, Sawyer, I'm taking this spider chart and walking into, Matt Rowe's office and saying I demand a couple of thousand more. But other than that, man, like, win games, win a championship. I don't care what it looks like. You know whose spider chart didn't look good in 2023? Patrick Mahomes. It didn't look good it probably didn't look good in 2024. But at the end of the day, winning games win. And I don't care how ugly it is. Let's go win games.
I love it. And this is a good time to bring in my friend, Rogue Media's own Pete Souza is here in studio with me in the Alico. Pete, what's up, man?
Man, Terrence, Scotty, thank you so much for having me. I'll tell you right now, I might be out of my depth because this is hardcore. I mean, I got a former player, a guy who did it all. and a guy who doesn't forget a thing. So here we go.
Listen, you deserve to be here more than either one of us, but man, we really appreciate it. Being in Texas for a little bit, you don't have a Texas hat yet?
I don't have what?
A Texas hat?
No, I'm from Philly. I'm from Philly. Come on now. Yeah.
Are you a Eagles fan?
Hardcore Eagles.
Man,
hardcore
don't
Phillies.
get hit. Don't get Pete and I started. We do enough of this on his show where he gives me hell for the Dallas Cowboys situation, and I am so upset they won the Super Bowl. But
yeah.
Hey,
well,
Pete.
1 second, Scotty. 1 second, Scotty.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
My uncle's Jeremiah Trotter, my cousin, plays on the team.
Stop it.
And yeah, so I'm a huge Eagles fan as well. Yeah, yes, sir. Hammer, yes,
so
sir.
So Trotter is the real deal as a hardcore fan, because here's why. His rookie year was 99. We were horrible. And he was the one guy that you would literally watch every game, and I'd be like, man, this guy's amazing. Kind of like, honestly, Overshown was this year for the Cowboys. Like, the team's horse, you know what, but I can watch this guy fly around and make plays. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, fly, Eagles, fly. All right, Scott, you can go, man. Talk about whatever.
I'm gonna puke. This is a Baylor Bear football podcast. Pete, you've interviewed Sawyer Robertson. You've talked a lot about Sawyer Robertson. Mm-hmm. You heard me and Terrence bantering just a little bit. There's a lot of hype around Sawyer Robertson right now, especially amongst Baylor fans. How do you feel we should be rating him? What should our expectations be? Are we crazy for thinking that he is arguably the best quarterback Baylor's had in a decade? Like how do you view him as someone who's probably not as biased as maybe me or Terrence?
Well, I can only speak to what I've seen. I'm going to take these off a little bit because I'm getting a little feedback. I've seen him play, right? I've seen him start a couple games that I've had the opportunity to call. Like you guys said, I've interviewed him. And I've watched him so closely ever since I've been in Waco, and obviously he's been in Waco the whole time I've been here. I'll say this. We were talking about Shapen, or you guys were. And when he got hurt in that Texas State game, that opener, Sawyer came in, and then Sawyer got dinged up. So I felt like that whole 2023 season, we really never saw Sawyer. And this is me not being a football savant like you guys are. I thought he was just trash. I was like, this kid's not good. He can't run the offense. It's also, and that whole year was just tough to watch. I mean, I try to stay indifferent. Obviously, I do when I'm calling games, but I'm always pulling for Baylor. Scotty will tell you that. And it was a really frustrating situation. The offense was anemic. It was pretty easy to lose interest almost in Baylor as a team because it was so hard to watch. And he was at the controls a lot of times. And even when you threw up that spider web for Shapen, he was so much better than Sawyer when he was in there. So it was really hard to get a gauge on this dude. And then I was so pumped, that he was coming off the bench. I really was to begin this season. I didn't think he should start. What's the kid's name? It's escaping me. The guy who started the season.
Finn.
Yeah. So DeQuan Finn was so exciting. I was so pumped to see him play because I thought he would bring excitement, and also I thought he would bring wins, and he could run the ball and throw the ball. And I had no idea how good Sawyer was. I really didn't. And then when he came and he started to play, and the one thing that you guys didn't talk about, which why would you? Terrence, you can speak to this more than any of us, but the dude is like his leadership is the one thing you always hear about. That's like an intangible that's not on that web, right? Like every player you talk to, and I know Terrence has talked to a bunch, I've talked to a couple, everybody you talk to is like, this guy, he's so easy to get behind. And there is the team just follows him. And since when he became the starter, I think everybody kind of started to play a little bit more together. And I think he was probably partially responsible for that. As far as his tools as a quarterback, I think that 2015 Seth Russell year and Sawyer's year last year, when you look at them on paper, they're almost carbon copies. Sawyer, I think they both had 28 touchdowns. Sawyer had 8 picks.
The difference being Seth did it in 7 games.
Okay, that's 2015, right? Yeah. Well, but Seth did it with Corey Coleman. I mean, that's one thing. Corey Coleman was out of his mind good. And he also had, who was the other? There was another really good receiver on that team.
Katie Cannon was on that team.
Katie Cannon.
Yeah,
was just electric. So now you have it this year. Baylor had a bevy of strong receivers, solid receivers, but nobody that was as explosive as Corey Coleman. So I think that was some of the drop off in some of the explosive numbers. But I'm super excited. I think that Baylor fans should be sky high about Sawyer Robertson. But to Terrence's point, like this year is I don't know what's going to come of this year. I'm excited. I'm optimistic. But once the bullets start flying again, remember now, all these defensive coordinators have seen Sawyer Robertson for a whole season now. It's like a pitcher in the major leagues after his first 10 starts. It's like, okay, we've seen you. And then things can change awfully quick. We saw that happen with Blake Shapen. We were so excited about him coming into 2022. And obviously that we came crashing back down to earth on that one real quick. But yeah, so that's kind of an answer your question, Scotty, where I stand right now.
No, that's great. I think that's fair and balanced. I think that's the test of every quarterback, right? Is like going from year 1 to year 2. Yes, there's another year of tape, but you also hope that elevation after being a starter for a full season. Now, man, you've got that, nothing is going to surprise, you would hope. Now, nothing is going to surprise Sawyer Robertson that a defense can throw it out there. He's seen a full year. I mean, I think, I honestly think that bowl game too against LSU, I know that may not be fun to talk about from a Baylor result perspective, but he was one of the few Baylor players that played really well in that game. Sawyer Robertson was not the reason Baylor lost that football game by any means. And so now it's not just that he's seen Big 12 defense. He's seen a really good SEC defense. I don't think he's going to be shocked at all by anything Auburn can do in August against him. And so now it's the test. How much do you elevate? Terrence was talking about it, and he is right. I gave him a hard time, but he is right. You can't miss a deep ball throw if Ashton Hawkins has a step on the sideline. You can't miss. You've got to hit it, right? Those are the little things, the little tweaks. But I think what Pete pointed out, Terrence, I'd be curious on your perspective. I think he's got the mentality and work ethic to take that jump.
Well, I think we'll find out the first 30 minutes of the season. I mean, if he goes out there and he lights up Auburn and we go 250, 4 touchdowns, 50 yards on the ground, he didn't have to run. But if he lights up Auburn, a good defense, not a great defense in the SEC, but they see great quarterbacks week in and week out that can throw the ball. They're going to have some really good guys on the secondary that's going to be able to kind of handcuff our receivers, should be able to run with them beat for beat. And so me as a player, former player, and I'm coming into the season, and probably every other Big 12 coach is looking at, all right, what can Sawyer do? And you're going to know within 30 minutes of the season what he's been doing the whole offseason, how gelled the team really is, and if he can take it to the next step. I don't want to go and he throw 2-3 picks against Auburn and then we go on and we got the right guy. No, if the right guy, he needs to show up right now the next 10 practices and spring ball. I do think the intangibles are there. The team wants to follow him. They'll run through a brick wall for him, but they'll run through a freaking what's Wolverine's medal?
Adamantium.
They'll run through one of those walls if he lights Auburn up for 4 or 5 touchdowns this fall. And that's what we're going to need. If Baylor's going to be in the Big 12 contention or conversation, Sawyer Robertson has to be elite in almost every facet of the game. I don't care what his spider chart looks like, but he has to be elite with early down decision-making, and he's going to have to be elite when it comes to being in tough spots, using his legs, and being able to make guys open. And then another thing that we haven't talked about, why LSU blew us off out of the water. Sawyer has to be great, but he's not going to be able to make up for a bad defensive secondary, and we must get that right at Baylor.
You're totally right. You're totally right. And I will just say to kind of wrap up the Sawyer conversation.
Well, I got one question for Terrence.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about his ability to run and move out of the pocket? Because we didn't see it at all his first year here because he was hurt. He was hobbled. Yeah. I was shocked at how well he does. And even the design runs, the draws once in a while right up the middle. But he's not dynamic running the football, but he's more than just enough.
Here, that was my next comment, and then I'll let Terrence finish it. My next comment that you came over was the charts that I liked the most were Russell, Bohannon, and Sawyer, because the thing those three guys had in common on that chart were sack rate. Their sack rate was incredible. Like there's a instinctiveness, I think, to those guys. It's not about athleticism as much, at least to me, for Sawyer. It's an instinctiveness. He has the clock in his head. He senses the pressure, and he knows just how to get out of it and get rid of the football.
Scouts and coaches talk about his pocket presence being unbelievable. So that speaks to that.
Go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah. I listen, I think the guy's a phenomenal runner. If he doesn't run like he ran last year, we don't go on a 6-game win streak. I mean, it was incredible for him. And he having a mobile quarterback kind of slows down the pass rush, which allowed our running game to get going the way they did. I mean, Washington, no one knew Washington would be a 1,000-yard rusher last year, especially the way we started off the season. Like, we couldn't, open a hole against anyone.
No.
And then when you have a quarterback that can run the ball, that pauses a defense, because giving up 5, 10, 6 yards to a quarterback is demoralizing when you've stopped the running back 3 or 4 times in a row. And then you open up a big play, and it allows him to have much more options in the pass game. When he's mobile, he's outside the pocket. You can't be right as a defensive back unless you just got really good coverage behind you. So I think he's a really great runner. He's not going to bust an 80-yard run and stiff arm people, spin. He's not that type of runner. But I liken him like Jalen Hurts, is that he has very calm feet in the pocket because he knows he can escape the pocket. And then when he's a smart runner, so he doesn't take big hits. So as long as he can stay healthy, defensive secondary gets better, we have a chance. But for me personally, I'm looking for him to light up Auburn within the first 10 minutes. I don't give him 30 minutes. We need to get out of the gates really fast and have a great game in Waco. A great game against Auburn.
So Pete, part of why I like having you here and wanted you here, and beyond just the fact that you're my friend, is you cover the Big 12. Like that's kind of your niche right now in the media space, right? Like for ESPN, doing a lot of Big 12 work, and one of your shows called Inside the 12 every week, talking about Big 12s. And I'm curious, and this kind of Auburn Baylor game sets up this conversation a little bit. The national perception, fair or unfair, we could argue, but the national perception is what it is, which is that the SEC and the Big 10 are like here, and then the Big 12 and the ACC are somewhere like a pretty good gap below. And depending on who you talk to, they might rank those a little differently, but that's kind of the national perception. I think what I loved about what Arizona State was able to do this season is not only did they go from being voted last to winning the conference, but then they should have beat Texas. Like Texas got out of that game fortunate to get a win. Like Arizona State, unlike maybe SMU's performance or some others, Arizona State showed, yes, they got that bye, but they freaking belonged. Like they were toe-to-toe with Texas in that game. It wasn't a question of how good, like, were they worthy to be there? I'm curious what you think as far as where is the Big 12 over the next decade in terms of college football? And I know that's a kind of a long way to project out, but like, how does the Big 12 move forward as a league and continue to be a respectable, competitive football conference that, like, we don't put them like, it's not like the JV league to the SEC, like the best teams in the Big 12, like if Baylor wins the Big 12 this year, I want to believe that means they could walk into the playoff and do something similar, put up a competitive game, beat an SEC team. What is your perception on all of that? And where does the Big 12 fit in this overall landscape?
Well, in my opinion, I think the first good example with the Big 12 and the ACC, I think the Big 12 is a lot better than the ACC. As far as a football conference. And I really respect, and it's exciting to see what SMU is doing. And I know that game was not on a neutral field, and the Texas-Arizona State game was, but SMU didn't belong on that field in Happy Valley against Penn State. And I don't know that you're getting upset, Scotty. I know, because you're a big, SMU guy. But see him right away, Terrence. He goes,
no, I picked Pete's just giving me a hard time because I picked SMU to win that game.
No, I'm not. I swear.
No, yeah, you give me a hard time because I picked SMU and I looked like an idiot. But go ahead.
No. But I really believe so. So I just want to say that off the bat. I think that the Big 12 is a better conference than the ACC. Football, basketball, whatever. Even though Duke is amazing. But as far as where the Big 12 is in the next decade, I feel like, unfortunately, you're not going to break into, and I hate saying this because I don't want to sound negative, but it's so hard to break into Big 10, SEC category because you just don't have the money through the TV deals. Like the Big 12's TV deal and is like, and I forgive me for not knowing the exact numbers, but there's SEC and Big 10 right here with their TV deals. And then the Big 12's is like, 20 million off or 30 million lower or whatever it is, but it's lower. And I think that that's an indication of where we'll go over the next 10 years. Now, the good news is the Big 12 will by no means fall off the map. There's too many great schools with a lot of money, right? Like I think one you look at who just did well the basketball season, came within an eyelash of making the Final Four is Texas Tech. You look at Colorado. I mean, there are schools in the Big 12, Arizona State, obviously. Like there are the teams and schools that are the class of the Big 12.
Utah had a down year.
Utah had a down year. That will not BYU. Like there's a lot of solid teams in the Big 12. The problem is the money. So I think you're going to be coming in third to those two conferences for the foreseeable future. Now that doesn't mean, thank God for the college football playoff, you won't have a team go on a run and win the whole thing. Like that's very possible. But as far as the pecking order, body of work style, 10 years in the future, I think that you're going to be behind those conferences. And then you have all the, who knows what the hell is going to happen, a super conference but right now it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Because of money, the Big 12 is third to those two, but I do not put it past a Big 12 school or two or three in the next 10 years to go on a run and win a title. That is by no means, out of reach, but overall, I think they stay third. And I think the ACC is in trouble. That's just my opinion. I don't think that I think they're in trouble. So I wouldn't even put them in the same conversation with the Big 12. That's just me.
Well, they got their big members, always leaking information about conversations and wanting more money. I don't know who takes them though, if the Big 10 takes them or the SEC takes them, because of the two markets in Clemson and Florida State.
Dude, I'm on it.
Have it covered.
I'm honestly shocked Yormark isn't at both of those schools, like begging. Like not that the
and
Big
maybe
12
he is.
to Terrence's point, maybe he is, Scotty. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of shrewd. Like some of that stuff happens. Like there's so much stuff around UConn joining the Big 12. And there was a lot of hype like that we all knew about, and then it got shut down. But usually when these things actually happen, it's like a friggin' release on a Sunday afternoon that all of a sudden Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC. I mean, we'd heard whispers, but that was a knockout blow.
Like I just truly, you're talking about the money and I think because of the legacy of those two programs, the national championship pedigree of those two programs in particular, Florida State and Clemson, of course. If the Big 12 was able to add them to the strength that does still exist, as you were mentioning, I think that like your next TV deal, that helps you get closer, like big time. And it helps you broaden out. Like honestly, the Big 12 is kind of weak right now along the East Coast. You've got UCF and West Virginia. Like, okay, let's just quadruple that interest and add Clemson and Florida State. You know what I mean? Like.
We're not going to compete with the endowments of the big schools in those two power conferences. Texas A&M, Alabama, Ohio, Michigan. I mean, those five schools are going to be in the playoffs until the cows come home. They're going to dissolve of the playoffs before one of those schools, if not two or more, are going to represent college football.
Did you have to? Listen, I know they've got a lot of money, but don't put Texas A&M in the same breath as all those other programs.
But they have, they have that. That's he mentioned endowment.
But all those other programs have national.
They're one game away from it. They're one game away from the SEC championship. It's not.
I'll be a hater.
It's not a far reach that they couldn't make it. But when you think about the money, look at what's happening in college basketball right now. For the first time in 15, 16 years, all number one seeds are in the Final Four. And so I think there's going to be more disparity at the top championships, but I think there'll be a lot more fun games in a conference like the Big 12. And I hope that we keep getting better and keep getting members that are going to be productive in the conference. I think one of the things that Brett is not really focusing on right now is no one really knows how to handle 18, 20 team conference. And what does that look like from a money? How do you split up money? How do you travel? What about these other sports? I almost feel like we all are waiting for men's and women's basketball and football to break away from the NCAA to form these conferences and regional groupings that make more sense on a national level than having volleyball travel from Spokane, Washington, all the way over to whatever team, the Rutgers on a Tuesday night. It just doesn't make much sense.
And it's funny, you mentioned it. That's a really good point that I'd never heard of, Scotty, is that the 18, 20 team conferences, every basketball coach I talked to this year calling games, I mean, every one of the Big 12 would at one point or another complain about 20 games in conference is too much. You don't have a chance to breathe. The players don't have a chance to have one night where they can rest besides being traveling or maybe a day to practice. And the Big 12 is a juggernaut too. So it's tough to have that many games with that many teams. Like, how do you do it? What is the recipe for success?
Yeah, and I like, Terrence, that you mentioned regional games, and that just makes too much. Like, the biggest loss of conference realignment has been regional rivalries. Like, and we know that. Like, that's in every school. I think almost every school has been affected by this across the country. Like, I was talking smack 5 minutes ago. I hate that Baylor doesn't play Texas A&M in football or men's basketball anymore. I hate that. Like, we should be playing them every season in basketball. We should be. Because for 8 decades, that was a every season game that people got fired up for, especially here in Waco. People would love to beat Texas A&M in basketball. Like, we should be doing that. And if you limit the conference slate, as you're saying, in some of those sports, you can do more of that. And again, Baylor and A&M have faced off in some of the smaller sports since conference realignment. But yeah, we should be playing them every 5 years in football. We should play them I think every season in basketball. We should do a home, like,
that's one thing that everybody talks about, is that to a man, we can all agree, or woman, that the rivalries are important. And like, the more we can get those regional rivalries back together or sustain what we can, like BYU and Utah in the Big 12, like, that was killer this year. People were super excited about that. And we need more of that. Like, you can ask young, you can ask old. Like, I'll talk to King McClure and talk to Fran Fraschilla, and it's all the same. We got to keep the rivalries together. Is that something you agree with, Terrence?
Absolutely. I mean, I love it. When you talked a little bit earlier about just the conference or the schools in the Big 12 that are doing well, look at Texas Tech in the last 5 years. They're probably a top 5 athletic program. I mean, they've been to the Final Four. They have All-Americans in track. I mean, they are doing a really good job with their athletic program. And when you talk about them maybe leaving or someone else leaving, us not playing Texas Tech or TCU, A&M all 90 minutes away from each other, it doesn't make much sense at all. And I'm telling you, there's a couple of games every year that are circled because your best friend went to that school over Baylor, the school you chose, and you want to show them up. I mean, you got everyone coming to the game. Your grandma that don't go to games, she's at the game. Everyone is tuned in because they want to see, 2 high school kids that play basketball in the front yard, since 5 years old, go at it against each other. And I think you lose that, especially when there's so many athletes that stay in Texas and we can keep those rivalries alive and healthy. I don't know if playing A&M in basketball does us any justice because we're just going to spank them every year. But football would be a really good thing. And it's so easy to get. It'd be easy to schedule it because of it's out of conference. Like, just put it on the schedule. It doesn't change anything. Well, but I think A&M is scared.
By the way, one thing on the Texas Tech point, and it's all about, I hate doing this, but it's all about money. Like, Texas Tech, they flipped their entire softball program. They were the worst program in the Big 12. They got a new coach and a bunch of new players that they bought, and now they're at the top of the Big 12 beating everybody's ass. And I actually was heartbroken when Texas Tech didn't make the Final Four last night. I like Graham McCaskill.
I was too.
I want to see another Big 12 team get in. All right, here's the good news. that window's not closing anytime soon for
Right.
Texas Tech.
No.
So
No.
like that, they'll continue. But Houston, I was really rooting for, because I feel like when Kelvin Sampson leaves Houston, that window's going to close. Like they just don't have the resources there at that school that a school like Texas Tech does comparatively.
Yeah, and one of Texas Tech big donors here in Fort Worth just sold a bunch of stuff, and they're probably going to pump more money into it. Now, they spent $1 million on a pitcher, but if you know a pitcher in softball, they can win a game. They can win a series.
They
can pitch. Yeah. They can pitch every game. I mean, Whitney Cannon was a great pitcher for us when I was at Baylor, and she was able to help the Baylor softball girls win a lot of games. So I agree. I'm rooting for U of H as well. And I was heartbroken by Texas Tech. They gave up a 16-2 run right there at the end. Oh. And all they got to do is make free throws and play defense. You got a lights-out shooter that's confident anywhere on the court, and you don't have someone on him 24. I don't care who else beats us. I mean, it's always – we all played basketball in middle school on the park. There's a kid over there in the corner that no one cared if he shot the ball. If he beat us, like, we're all celebrating, all right? Like, we don't care. But we're going to make sure Pete and Scotty don't get the last shot. And I'm like, why wouldn't he do that? I don't care who else is on. Florida has a 6, they got a 12-foot player. I don't care if he's shooting from half court. Let him shoot the ball. But Clayton, he cannot get the shot. And I think he might have scored 20 points in the last 10 minutes. And he was lights out. He played super confident. And I felt for Texas Tech, and then I remembered that they're a rival as well.
Can I ask Terrence one more question, Scotty?
Yeah.
Did you ever have a loss like that, Terrence, where – because that was one of those things that I would rather lose – Charles Barkley said it, like by 100 than lose a game like that. Did you ever have a loss like that where you were right there and it was like, oh, and you just can't shake it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about if it was in college. I'm just trying to think like when I played, either we were getting beat by 1 million or we won by 15. But my last game in high school, we lost, and I threw a touchdown pass. I threw a interception the last play of the game. It was in the end zone. We needed a play. I threw the ball, and the guy intercepted, and I tackled him probably 60 yards down the field. And I just it was so painful because by all accounts, we're probably picked to win the game. We just did not play a great game. And to Charles Barkley's point, you much rather lose by 50 than to play your absolute best or feel like you could have done more and just rethinking it. And as an athlete, I've seen so many times where you're in a game and I'm watching the game, and I could tell by the body language of a couple of years ago, Green Bay had a chance to beat the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. And one of the receivers, he drops a ball, and he goes over to the sideline, and he's like, he shrugs it off, and he's smiling. And I look at my son, Zayd, and I'm saying, Zayd, like, that just cost him the game. He had another opportunity and drops it as well. And I'm just thinking, like, when you are not locked in and you're not focused and you got players like that on the team, it sucks because they're really good players, but sometimes they're not always on their best. But I hated losing or being close to any game. I just – and as a father, as a coach of my young kids, and as a former student athlete, I just want people to show up and play and leave it all out there on the court. And hopefully teach them a lot lessons, or maybe they just grow up and be disgruntled and have a podcast with a good friend.
Pete, I don't know if you knew this. We were talking about Houston and Tech. Terrence played at Houston, so doesn't surprise me that we're going to be pulling for Houston in this Final Four. And Pete, in one of the craziest college football plays I've ever seen, Texas Tech. Terrence, you weren't even the starter yet at this point because you were on special teams, but Texas Tech kicked an onside kick, and then nobody touched it. I don't know if it didn't quite go 10 yards, but the ball came to like a complete stop. And there was like a group of 4 or 5 dudes just standing around the football. I kid you not, Terrence can correct me, but I was at the game. If memory serves, like 5 seconds. And Ganaway just picks it up and runs by everybody and scores and got a kick return touchdown on one of the most, but that was against Texas Tech. That was like your first like big play for Baylor, dude.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think I had other plays than that, Scott. I thought you were actually watching football. Listen, but it was so funny because everyone, when you got to Scott sideline, they were like, "Why would you ever touch it?" And they're like slapping me on the head, like, "Great job," but they're always screaming, "Don't touch it!" Like, it's 8 yards. We're gonna get the ball on 38-yard line. We have Robert Griffin as the quarterback. Like, you don't need to touch it. Like, let's just get the ball back. And it's crazy because Dino Babers was the special teams coach, and so I was the one on the front line of the kick return team. And the next week, he kicks an onside kick to me, and I'm running back, and he's like, "Get away! You're supposed to stay here until you see the ball is kicked deep." And so it was a coaching point. But man, it was a fun game, and I love. There's two teams I cannot stand. I think they're great schools, TCU and Tech. And I love the fact that they're both in the Big 12 because they make for really, really fun rivalries. And I never thought, Scotty, you were watching Baylor long before I was. I didn't become a Baylor fan until 2009 when I stepped on campus. But when I look at rivalries and being very similar programs, I always looked at Baylor and Tech and Baylor and TC very similar programs. I never really considered Texas, Oklahoma, and A&M a rivalry. Now, I got up for those games. I was ready to play them because somebody's got to knock them off. But I never truly considered them rivalries because, I mean, when you beat somebody 20 times out of 20 times, like that's just that's a bully. Yeah, so it wasn't a rivalry for me. And but Texas Tech and TCU are always fun games for me.
Listen, there's a lot of validity to what you're saying, and I think everybody knows TCU is the natural rival. Like the schools are too similar, private, Christian origin in their founding, great football highs over the past 2 decades. Like there's a lot of similarities. But Terrence, I will tell you, growing up in Waco, when I was a kid, and TCU was not in the conference, we did not hate anyone more than A&M. And it was mostly the attitude stuff. Like they walk around as if they're UT, except again, they don't have the championships to back it up. Like they strut around like they've earned something, and they've always been little sister to the Texas Longhorns. And the other thing that would drive me crazy, even in middle school and high school, is all the A&M people at your high school would say like, "Oh, we don't care about Baylor. Oh, we don't even care. We don't even care that we play you guys. We only hate Texas." But they talked more crap to you than they talked to anyone else. And I vividly remember, Terrence, and I looked up the news story about this like 3 months ago because I was like, is my memory correct? And it was. A&M played a game in the Farrell Center like the late 2000s, like 08, 09, somewhere in there. And I was there. And Baylor was favored. Scott Drew was starting to get the wheels going on that program. And A&M came into the Farrell Center and like beat us. I think Donald Sloan might have been on that team, and Chris Middleton might have even been on that team. I don't remember. It was that era of A&M basketball, right? They came in and beat the brakes off of us. And there was a technical in the final minute, and a bunch of Baylor fans started throwing bottles and crap on the court, and they had to like stop the game and clear the court. And it was like this big thing. And so then they come out, A&M's up by like 10. They get the ball back. Shot clock is turned off. And this dude runs down the court. Nobody's playing defense. Throws an alley-oop to himself off the glass and tomahawk jams it just to give like a big FU to the Baylor fans. And everyone starts throwing crap and hitting players, and they had to get like rushed off the court with police. And that's the kind of crap where people are like, no, A&M and Baylor never had a rivalry. I'm like, it's not a premier rivalry, but those two schools, there was no love lost. Like there was plenty of vitriol to go around.
Listen, speaking of basketball, Pete, you talked about Fran and King. The Big 12 has been a very dominant basketball league the last 4 or 5 years. I think we've had 3 teams to win the national championship. Texas Tech was there. But this year we kind of took a step back. SEC had a very dominating league. do you think that the Big 12 can get back to where they were and and this was just in basketball, or was it just a down year?
I think it was just a down year. When you look, I was super excited to see the kid DeBansta who's getting $7 million. You came around just a little too early, Terrence.
Yeah,
I mean,
I got a COVID year.
Koa Pete is going to Arizona. There's another kid that's going to Kansas.
Tunde's coming to Baylor.
Yeah, Tunde is going to Baylor, your boy, Scotty. So that's in McDonald's All-American. They have a slew of really good recruits. And honestly, we were just talking about it. Again, they were within just a few points in that 16-2 run from having two teams in the Final Four. And I think they may have been underrated this year, because if Baylor gets the Big 12 gets two teams in, then the SEC would only have one right now. I think, am I correct? Yeah. So it was a down year, but if that's a down year, I'll take it. But to answer your question, I think they take it right back, or at least they're even with the SEC next year. I don't think this is like an epidemic that we're going to see for a while going forward. I really do think that the Big 12 will stay elite in basketball.
Well, and Terrence, Pete and I talked on his show last week about how, like, if you just look at even the first two rounds of games, like 6 of the 7 Big 12 teams won their first round game, and like half the SEC teams lost in like the first round. Like, I mean, even like 9 Baylor beating 8 Mississippi State, I think reflects.
I think they were 7-1 after the first weekend, or something like this.
Yes,
6-1.
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. So
it looked real good. Yeah, and so that's that's the thing with Big 12 football this year. Like, I do that show Inside the 12, right, for the conference, and it was frustrating because, and it speaks to what Scotty was just saying, and you were saying the same thing, Terrence. Like, we love that the Big 12 has exciting games. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, you want to be mentioned as the class of college football, not the team that, because we would lead the show off, right? You get like the Big 12 PR people saying like, all right, here's what we would like you to say. Well, there became a point in the season where really all we could say was, we could talk about Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State really primarily. And then Baylor came into the conversation at the end. But it was a lot of, hey, look at our conference has the most close games, you know? And it's like, well, in the SEC, they're saying our conference is just beating the ever-living daylights out of everybody else. And that was the one frustrating part where you love the games are exciting, but it'd be really cool to see this year Big 12 football ascend to heights where we don't necessarily have to talk about that as often. With the Big 12 and the basketball, you never have to talk about that. Like, you're never coming up or manufacturing any stats or storylines. The conference is what it is. It's still pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was watching Duke play. I can't remember who they played in Elite Eight, but someone was like, "Oh, Duke hasn't been in close games, so we really want to figure out, how this is going to match up." And Duke ends up beating them by 20. Like, at the end of the day, it's all about wins. But to your point, the Big 12 has to have something more to the storyline other than fun rivalries, close games. We got to have a team that wants to step forward. And because of the parity in NIL now, will you ever have a Baylor team as dominant as they were in the mid-2000s, or a TCU team that was dominant? Oklahoma dominated the last 5-6 years of the Big 12 in football. And so I don't know if you ever get that now with the type of landscape. And, I mean, it's only going to get bigger once July 1st rolls around and there's profit sharing. These athletes are going to get paid a lot of money, and I don't know how you motivate an athlete. Back in the day when I played, that aluminum bench over there, it was a great motivator. I don't know if you can bench a guy that's making $1 million. He's going to want to be benched because he didn't have to play, and he's still going to get paid. So it'll be hard.
He might not have the maturity to even have an impact on him. He might, and like I would have been at that age. It's like, all right, fine. Maybe I got an attitude problem on this day.
Yeah.
I'm too young to know.
Yeah. I mean, this weekend with 12-year-old baseball, I put a kid on the bench. He's falling asleep at second base. And the shortstop goes and get a ball that's 5 feet from him. He's like, I don't know how he got it. I know how he got it. Get over there. You're going to figure out how he got it. And so, but that's how you should be. Like, you got to want it. And it's a great motivator. Bobby Knight said it's the best motivator he's ever known in sports. Put somebody on the bench and they'll figure it out. So we have a ton to look forward to in multiple sports, but I can't wait till Baylor ascends to greatness across the board. Back in football, women's, men's basketball, and baseball, which we're trying to fight for right now.
Guys, we're running up against showtime, and I know Terrence has things to do. Pete's been here for almost an hour. I know
I'm
he's
loving
got
it,
things to do.
dude. But yeah.
Pete, I do want to honor your time, and I did want to ask you this before you take off, because we're doing this March Madness bracket where we're looking at all these great players from across Baylor history. And I was super curious. Like, you're a guy who grew up in the Northeast, not even close to Texas, right? And
Walter Abercrombie was my guy, because
there
when
you
I
go.
was a kid, he was on the Steelers. And even though I was in Philly, and Philly and Pittsburgh are sort of like different states in themselves, but it was when the Steelers started to fall off. So they had a high draft pick and they took Walter. And I was like, who is this guy? So that was one of I knew Singletary went to Baylor, obviously, but Walter was the second guy who I was like, oh, wow, this is a Baylor guy. So that's when Baylor really came on my radar.
Well, that's great. And that's what I wanted to ask you is, like, as a guy from the Northeast, who are the guys from across history, across the eras that you're like, that's what I think of when I think of Baylor football. So Singletary, Abercrombie.
I mean, Singletary was the guy. I mean, he was so good. When I was a kid, I can remember. I remember my brother Kevin, who was 8 years older than me. His buddy Joey Utch is over at the house, and Joey Utch is telling a story, which I'm sure wasn't true, but that Mike Singletary was such an absolute psycho about football that his coach, who I guess would have been Grant Taft, right?
Yeah.
Had to play opera music for him to settle down before the game because he was out of his mind. Now, that's almost 99% not true. But what my point is, like, there were like wives' tales about Mike Singletary making their way all the way to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about his time at Baylor. So he was the guy. Singletary for me is the guy. And I'm not saying he should be the number one guy this whole March Madness tournament you have. But for me, as an impactful Baylor player, I think I would have to say Mike Singletary. I mean, it's kind of too easy, but it's just the truth.
Yeah, I mean,
Scotty, you have the graphic of Mike. You have the graphic. I just want to show y'all something, man. And I haven't said anything because it's a little frightening. Just imagine you playing football. You got a ball in your hand, and this is what the guy looks like. I mean, look at you can see the white. You can't tell if Joe Paul's eyes are open or closed. But if someone's running at you like that, I mean, that's why I ain't, because I don't want to have nightmares about it even today. But I don't know if the story is true, but it's believable when you look at a guy that has eyes like that popping out of his head, running at you, probably screaming. Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine.
And to that era, and this is obviously before your teams in the Art Briles days. When I was a kid and I was in high school and I was obsessed with college football, Bill Walsh College Football came out on EA Sports. You could play it on Sega. And there were like 15 or 20 like current teams, and you could line it up. Like Chip Hillary was the quarterback of Kansas. He was number 18. So I knew it was him, and he was real fast, all on down the line. Like the players lined up with their numbers. That's when the whole Ed O'Bannon and all that stuff, those lawsuits came into play, right? Because they're using your guy's number. Nobody's getting paid. Well, Baylor had an all-time great team. And it was, I think, that team, I guess, what was it, 80, 81, whatever Singletary's senior year was, with Grant Taft was the head coach, where I think you guys were like top 3 in the country, 1, 2, or 3. And that was the great team. But I remember Singletary, his team was also elite, which kind of lends to his legend as a player at Baylor. I mean, he was able to elevate a program that wasn't really looked at as the time as one of the key brands in college football. That's how good he was as a middle linebacker.
Well, and truly, like to give him credit, in comparison to like an RG3, Jalen Petrie, some of these other guys that come up in the conversation, Baylor's resources at the time were so poor. Like I have heard stories. I know these stories are true. Grant Taft on visits, the goal was take the recruit to Grant Taft's office and don't let him see any of the rest of the facilities. Don't let him see the weight room. Don't let him see the locker room. Don't let him see, because it was so bad. I mean, even Terrence, probably like your early years were when it was finally starting to turn, and it still wasn't close to what we've got now. But like Grant Taft was working with nothing except whatever charisma he had and whatever he could promise parents. Like, so the fact that Singletary stepped into that poor of a situation and elevated Baylor to that level really is remarkable. Really is remarkable.
Says a lot.
It's crazy. But during that time, they just wanted to play football. I mean, I'm coaching 12U baseball right now, and if it rained 3 days ago, people don't want to get out on the fields and mess it up. So it drives me crazy. I wish we had concrete parking lot so we just get out there and play baseball. It is this is our first year doing it. It's a very weird sport, man. It is the moms, the dads, the parents, everyone is. I've never seen a sport where people are coming to having conversations with their kid in the dugout. Like, we're in the middle of a game, and they're talking to their kids about what they're going to do after. I'm like, man, football, you can't do that. Basketball, like, kids are locked in, and these kids are like, so y'all pray for me, man. That's my only prayer request tonight.
For real.
Just pray for me. But
Man.
I just wanted to play football, and Floyd Casey was just enough for me when I stepped foot on campus.
Pete, last question, and I'm going to let you go. Storylines right now in spring camp for Baylor that you're most intrigued by?
Well, I want to know about Sawyer Robertson and his development and where he's at. I think that the team goes as he goes, which you guys talked about too. Secondary play, is that improving? It needs to improve. That's been an Achilles heel. Other than that, I mean, I'm just, it is weird not having a spring game. And that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother show. I don't know that I necessarily like it. I'm not in the coaches' rooms. I understand they know a million times more than I ever will, forgotten more than I'll ever know, however you want to say it. But I do miss the pageantry and the opportunity for people to come and sit in the stands. And maybe if you can't afford to go during the year, and you can watch the game, and it does blend to the excitement and hype in some of those storylines.
I want to tell you, I have a strong opinion about this spring game thing, because this is the story of the week. In my opinion, the NCAA told Syracuse and Colorado that they cannot do their exhibition game that they were planning over Twitter. Fran Brown, former Baylor head assistant coach, and Deion Sanders tweeting back and forth.
By the way, Fran Brown is no dummy. Like,
no,
any chance you can go to Colorado and get some of that shine.
He knows exactly what he was doing, and it's smart. It's good. It's good business, frankly.
I can't remember the last Syracuse football conversation I had, so good for him.
But here's the deal. The NCAA told them they can't do that. But did you see what Mike Gundy said this week?
What?
Mike Gundy in a press conference this week said, and this goes back to what we were talking about 10 minutes ago with rivalries. Mike Gundy said, here's what we do. We need to be playing Oklahoma this spring. And we can do it at their place. We can do a game at their place and a game at our place. The game at their place, they keep all the money, charge $25 a ticket. We keep all the money and put it towards NIL. Game at our place, charge $25 a ticket, keep it all for NIL. Or you do it one site, one game. It's not and he said, not a full game, like a simulated practice like these NFL teams do, but charge at the gate and either do one game and split it for NIL, or do a home and home and do NIL. And he's like, why aren't we doing that? And I'm like, that's a great idea, actually.
So what the NCAA said is that it was a competitive advantage for recruits if Colorado and Syracuse were to do that. And it was because it was so late in the season, other programs haven't had a chance to schedule their home and home or away, whatever. They haven't had a chance to schedule their inner squad or outer squad scrimmage with someone else. I can tell you right now, I played 5 sports in high school. I didn't think about football until August. We had summer conditioning. I thought about football in August, and when it was done, I went to basketball and went to all these other sports. I hated spring ball. It was monotonous. You run there's no creativity. I mean, you run after practice 4, everyone knows the calls, everyone knows the signals, and so defense knows what you're doing. You know what the defense is doing, and it's just hitting heads. I don't think there's any value, me personally, a guy who hates spring football, in spring football. Now, I do think if you get something like this where you get a little bit more competitiveness out of it, I think it forces people to, really look at what spot and what situations you're in. I don't think stars are really ever made there unless you're really, a bad person or a bad athlete. Spring ball is just spring ball. It's just a bunch of things that coaches.
Did it make you
love to
any
do.
better? Did it make your team
No,
any better?
zero.
Okay,
I
but
don't think so. You don't learn offense. You right.
Yeah.
It's such a.
Okay, I got. Here's the difference, though, Terrence. I want your feedback on this because like you've done it and I haven't. I think transfer portal changes that a little bit. Like I think
no, it does not.
Okay, I'll take your word for it, but call me a skeptic. Like I think the fact that Prentice and all these guys are getting on the field with Aranda and that coaching staff, I think there's value to that. Maybe even if it's just for a couple practices, not the full spring. Maybe I'll listen to you. But the other question I have, here's a question, and you might tell me I'm just wrong. Did it not benefit RG3 to show up on campus in January and go through that spring and that whole summer with the team where he could, by game 2 of his freshman season, be the starter and have the full team behind him, as opposed to a freshman that comes in August and like his snaps would have been a month like on campus? Like, did that not make a difference?
I don't think so. I mean,
okay,
Robert,
there we go.
Robert, that's my opinion. And so Robert Griffin is an elite athlete. I don't care what time of the year he gets on campus. He should be starting week 2 because of his playmaking ability. And Baylor wasn't good. Now, if you had a good team that was going to be like Alex Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs that year before they let Patrick Mahomes take it over, hey, that's fine. Like, hey, let's sit back and you watch and learn the game. But we didn't have an Alex Smith on the team. We didn't have a good team. So, like, why wouldn't you're wasting his time?
Like my comp this season would be like, I love that Taz Williams is in practice now, and his first practice in a Baylor uniform is not in August. Like,
no,
is that just
a
fan thing?
No, it's a fan thing because as an athlete, you just want to play football, and there's nothing you want to do in spring ball that makes you want to go practice. Zero.
What about the spring game? Was that like
hated it? Everyone hated it. It's the worst thing because it's manufactured. That's why they play music at the spring game because nobody has emotions. I mean, it is just like, why are we doing this? I've hit LA Coffee for 15 straight days. I don't want to practice against them. Okay, yeah. Now we got to pump in all this music and get the crowd involved, and we got to do all this. No one likes spring practice. Just like now in the NFL, it's different. No one likes camp in the NFL, but it's a necessary evil. But as you see, a lot of coaches are trying to shorten camp and get an extra, a football game in there because they don't want to. It doesn't do anything. You're just beating up someone's body. Taz Williams, if he's a great receiver, I'm gonna tell you what you do: line him up out there, and you put an inside receiver, make the inside receiver draw the safety's attention, and then you say, Taz, go run by someone. Catch this football. 15 days in the spring doesn't matter if he's going to catch that football or not. I promise you. To me, I'm not getting paid to do that or coach that. The spring football is horrible, and Deion Sanders is right. He's like, where do we go with spring football if we do not make it more exciting? He's telling you as a player and as a coach. No one likes
it. And a marketing genius.
Yeah.
Well, Fran Brown is a marketing genius as well. Look at all the stuff he does for his program and his players, not only on the field, but off the field. When you got coaches telling you this out loud, they're saying the quiet part out loud. The only people that like spring football, Georgia and Alabama, because they got people walking in and walking out of campus because they can get 50 new players to 5 stars. Sawyer Robertson is going to be a little more confident. But what really is going to help Sawyer Robertson is April 1st. Not April 1st, August 1st. When you're 30 days from first game, that's when you start dialing it in. What you do right now, like you're running such a watered down script. I mean, you're running the same play over and over. It doesn't help anybody. And I will argue until I'm blue in the face, which is going to be hard for my skin complexion. But with anyone, spring ball is trash.
Pete, you can see why Terrence is the perfect co-host because
Terrence is awesome. I've been watching Terrence since 2017, since I moved to Waco.
Yeah, that's right. His passion is great.
I've gone on the record. I told Julie Hayes this back. I was like, dude, you and Terrence, it should just be you two the whole show. That's what I said. So I stand by that.
That's what we're doing.
Well, I need to text Julie Hayes. But listen, Scotty is a great checkmate here as well. And Pete, I know Scotty's been trying to wrap this up, but listen, you're welcome to join us anytime. Wear an Eagles hat next time, and you're all good with me, buddy.
Yeah, man. Honestly, guys, I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been a blast. I leave here feeling better than when I got here. That's what it's all about. I appreciate you guys.
Awesome. All right. Here's what I'm going to do, Terrence. I'm going to throw up this 5-minute intermission timer so I can get Pete out of here and get a drink of water. And then Terrence and I have one little bonus segment we want to come back and do. Real short, won't take but maybe 15 minutes, unless Terrence just gets as fired up about this as he does about spring football. We'll see. But I'll throw up this intermission timer. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will be back to wrap up. Please bear with me. All right. Hey, we're back. We'll wrap this thing up here in just a little bit. Did want to thank our sponsors before we wrap up today. You can see some of their names behind me on the screen. We're going to do a giveaway this week. Our friend Brian, who owns Primetime Pets, one of our sponsors, left a comment here. I'll address in just a second, but let's do this for our giveaway. I would love this. So either in a comment on any of our YouTube videos, or if you reply to a tweet of mine this week from the Please Bear With Me X account, like I'll tweet out again these polls for the Sweet 16. I'll send out some clips from the show today. If you comment if you have a dog or a cat, and maybe tell us their name. Let's do that. Tell us, I have a dog named so-and-so, or maybe a picture of your dog. That might help you win this giveaway. Hey, TG, remind us, what you got any pets in the house? What's y'all's situation?
I have a dog, and if you hear kids in the background, I'm trying to get them quiet. But
They're good. They're good.
I have a 12-year-old dog. His name is Ronnie, and he's been with us for a very long time, and he's nearing the end of his life, and it's super sad. And I'm gonna be hurt whenever it happens. It's the first time I've ever had a pet, and the first time we'll ever go through it. And I've swore by it that I will not do another dog, but everyone always tells me you will. So I'm gonna have to try Primetime Pets when I do.
Yeah, they're a gift. Dogs are awesome. So let's do this. Leave a comment on this YouTube video or any of our YouTube videos this week. Reply to a tweet from Please Bear With Me, maybe with a photo of your pet, a dog or a cat, and introduce us, and I will pick one to win something really nice from Primetime Pets. Brian wants to give away up to 4 items from Primetime Pets. They've got really, really nice furniture, pet beds, pet gates, things of that nature. We'll send you what you want, but that'll be our giveaway. We'll do that. Hey, speaking of that, Terrence, Brian just commented, who's sponsoring this giveaway, and said, what kind of dog is Ronnie?
He's an English Foxhound mix, and he's great. I'll drop a picture on Twitter whenever you post this.
Hey, do this, Terrence. Post a picture of Ronnie and ask and tell everybody what we're doing. Just say like, hey, we're doing a giveaway. Reply with a photo of your dog or cat.
Yeah,
and we'll look for someone to do a giveaway with. So
yeah.
Thanks to Primetime Pets for sponsoring. Also, Southern Roots. I got this cap. We'll give away this cap next week. How about that? The Southern Roots cap, as well as a pint glass and a koozie behind me. Thanks to Southern Roots. I was at Southern Roots for about 3 hours yesterday, hanging out with a buddy. Good pizza. Good local beer. They just opened their new location in Killeen. A lot of military folks down there that are enjoying Southern Roots now. They've also got a location in Waxahachie. We love Southern Roots. Waco born. Great folks. Fabled, of course. Why would you go spend your money at Amazon or Barnes & Noble when you can support a local bookshop like Fabled, as well as Dichotomy? You heard me talk about that at the beginning of the show. Dichotomy is my favorite place to grab an espresso in the mornings and an old-fashioned when I wind down. So good folks at Dichotomy. Here's the question I wanted to answer, and then Terrence and I will do our final little segment here. Brian did ask, who's the number 2 looking like behind Sawyer? And truthfully, I have not heard anything out of practice in that regard or anything new. But I think if it's not Walker White, that is a severe disappointment, given that he transferred in from Auburn, was a very highly rated 4-star, borderline 5-star guy coming out of high school. I think the expectation is he would be the backup and should start next season. I almost compare him, Terrence, like we showed those spider charts a little while ago. Walker White coming in behind Sawyer Robertson almost reminds me of like Stidham coming in behind Seth Russell.
Listen, I'll take that comparison. My thing with Walter White is he had an opportunity to compete for a spot there at Auburn. And I don't know the circumstances. I know coaching staffs are new, but he came in under one offensive coordinator. And from my research, I think it's still the same guy. And so I don't know how he's going to compete or if he's running from competition. But anytime you're a backup quarterback, You just got to stay sharp, and you got to be able to help the starter really get comfortable in dealing the ball around. I don't know if any coach in America ever games plan for a starter to go down. I think when Tony Dungy had Peyton Manning, they were like, "Why don't you get your backup reps?" He's like, "If 18 goes down, we're all going to be looking for a new job." I think that's the kind of way that we probably Aranda's looking. Sawyer is the guy, and if he stays healthy, it doesn't matter what number 2 looks like, at least this year.
I hear you, and I'll push back just a little bit because I know you brought up the Walker White thing last week with leaving Auburn when maybe he could have competed to start there. I will say this: Sawyer Robertson left Mississippi State when he could have competed to start there. It's worked out. Like, obviously, he's the guy. And when you think back over Baylor's last, let's say since Bryce Petty, last 10 years of football, we have needed good backup quarterbacks most of that season, or most of those seasons. I think of Blake Shapen stepping in a big way in that Big 12 championship game when Gary Bohannon couldn't go. I think of Stidham coming in, and had he not gotten hurt, like potentially still leading that 2015 team, like to the doorstep of the playoff. Like he played very well. I think of, that season that Brewer went down and then Bohannon went down and Zeno and like it's unfortunate, but it is often in college football, even if it's for a half. Nick Florence coming in for a half for RG3, Terrence, your senior year, right? Like you need those guys to be ready to go. And I like that we have a guy like Walker White who was so highly touted, kind of in that role.
So we were just writing off Bennett.
I am. Like, I was thinking about how to answer that honestly, bro. Like, I don't want to write off anybody, but like, yeah, dude, I don't think I've seen or heard of anything from Nate Bennett that makes me think he should be outplaying Walker White.
Okay.
I will tell you, I will go ahead and get this on the record early because I had to go back and run the tape on Charlie Brewer a couple weeks ago. Here's my early prediction, Terrence. I think the guy I am most excited about is actually about to play his senior year in high school. I think Quinn Murphy is the guy. I think that, he's our quarterback commit for next year's class. He is teammates of one Cooper Witten, who is considering Baylor the number 1 linebacker in America in next year's class. I'm kind of hoping that gets a Witten in a Baylor uniform. But that's neither here nor there. I think it's going to be Walker White.
All right. Listen, I hope he's a backup all year long. And if he gets the chance to start, I hope he elevates the team. And hopefully we got some really good teammates around him. But I'm looking forward to Sawyer Robertson being the lead guy as long as he stays healthy. And I'm going to pray over that every week.
Speaking of team ups, Terrence, we're going to end the show this way. Something that bonds us as friends outside of Baylor and football and faith and some of those things that we talk about. We are both like huge nerds, if I can say so. Like, we are both huge nerds. And speaking of teams, we love one team in particular. We are both comic book nerds, and we love the MCU, the Avengers. You and I swap text every year. Every time a big MCU movie comes out, we're swapping text. And they made headlines this week. They had that 5-hour like promo about Avengers Doomsday. They had like 26 chairs in a row. Freaking Ian McKellen's on one of them. It's like crazy. Like they're trying to get everyone hyped for the next Avengers movie. So I asked Terrence to close the show today. We'll do something a little different. We'll get out of football just a little bit. Your top 5 MCU movies. So just to qualify, that doesn't mean Marvel movies, because like Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi would be on my list, but that's not an MCU movie, right? We just MCU, Marvel Cinematic. So starting with Iron Man into present day, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What are your 5 favorite movies? I think there's 30 some odd of these movies now, Terrence.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many there are. And let's, you want to put yours up first or mine?
Yeah. We can walk through yours first.
All right, let's walk through mine first. That sounds good. Here we go. These are my top 5 MCU films. Number one, and I'm a little fresh because I just started my rewatch of this movie the other night. I in one breath will tell you I understand the criticisms of Avengers Endgame. I do not think it is a perfect film. However, it is such a good ending to the saga to that point. I thought it really threaded the needle on a very difficult story to conclude and did it about as well as you can. And I was rewatching it this week. I got about halfway through earlier this week, and I was just struck by, wow, this was a perfect conclusion to this huge saga. And it is the most fun I've ever had in a movie theater, was watching Avengers Endgame. It was a blast. So that's my number one. Number two, I think Captain America, the Winter Soldier is like a 10 of 10 action movie, period. Like, it's one of the very few Marvel movies I could pull out of the MCU and still love it. It's just a great action film. I do think the Captain America trilogy is probably the strongest trilogy of films within the MCU. Winter Soldier stands out for me. Avengers Infinity War is number three. I do understand all the people that say it is a better movie than Endgame. It is certainly shocking. That is another movie theater experience I'll never forget. Iron Man, for me, I keep wanting to say it's not top five, but it just is. Like, that's the one that started it all. It was a huge risk when the studio did it. Marvel needed that movie to make, or they were going to have to sell all their properties. And Jon Favreau and Robert Downey and all those guys made a heck of a film. It's the origin movie that now every superhero movie tries to be, but does not do as well. And of course, like, Robert Downey as Tony Stark is just a singular, all-time good fit, good casting character. Great. I mean, we think Tony Stark just is Robert Downey Jr. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then Black Panther, number five, like, you can't deny every way that movie was a success. Culturally, Oscar recognition, which is so rare for superhero movies, soundtrack, action, freaking Michael B. Jordan just turning in like probably the best villain performance in the MCU. All due respect to Josh Brolin playing Thanos, but like, really hard to put any villain in the MCU over Killmonger and the way he performed that role. So that is my top five. And before I get your comments, Terrence, I'll just say I really wanted to get a Guardians movie in here. I think all three Guardians movies are borderline top 10 for me, but I just could not justify putting any of them in this one. And the other one that I was really sad to leave out, I loved the movie theater experience of Spider-Man No Way Home. I loved the experience of seeing that movie, but I think that movie is really shoddy on its own. I think it only works because you get the legacy actors in there playing their parts. And it's just fun to watch. But anyway, those were my thoughts. That's my top five. What do you think, bro?
Listen, I love your top five. When I look at Endgame, you are spot on. It is the perfect ending of 22 some odd movies. How they did it, it was great. I didn't think it was the best movie of the Avengers, but I loved the ending. And then the final fight scene, I mean, I think it's 40 minutes long. It was just all the feels, people coming back, chasing. Does he really have it? And just all the stuff that made it a great film. And then Winter Soldier, when that movie came out, it was by far my favorite Marvel movie. It being with Bucky, it was like it topped, and there was no, I don't care. The first Avengers was a great ensemble. It didn't do it. Like Winter Soldier and Captain America was my favorite movie for a long time. And these are great. This is a great list. My list looks a little like this and different in some areas. I think Infinity War is the best movie that they ever had. I thought everything at stake. Thanos, we're seeing Thanos up real. He's the best villain I've ever seen, ever. I mean, the punchlines. I thought Ultron was a great villain as well. That's why he rounds out my top five. And then when you think about Ultron, that movie sets up a lot of the future where people really don't, understand. And man, it's just a phenomenal movie to rewatch, and it's probably my favorite movie, Avengers movie, to rewatch. But Infinity War was obviously the best show, and it tops my top 5. Civil War, it should be an Avengers movie itself with all the people coming to it. That's where we get to see.
Yeah, the criticism of that movie is that Robert Downey Jr. has the most screen time in a Captain America movie.
Yeah,
because it really is an Avenger. It is Avengers 2.5, totally.
Yeah, it should have been an Avengers movie. But we get introduced to Black Panther. We get introduced to Spider-Man, and then obviously Ant-Man makes an appearance as well. Black Panther, what you said, the cultural representation, the music, the wardrobe, the scenes, everything about that movie made me super proud to be a part of that community. And I just loved it. Thor Ragnarok, probably outside of Black Panther, the best standalone film of a superhero. I try to get Guardians of the Galaxy in there. I love those movies. A movie that doesn't get a lot of credit for Doctor Strange, the first one, was a really good movie, but it doesn't top these, in my opinion, these 5. And these are my top 5. And if I had to go 6, 7, I would have did the Winter Soldier and then Endgame to round out some of the similarities. Iron Man, I cannot take anything from it. I respect that you have it in your top 5. It started this marathon of movies, and if it's not a hit, I agree. It would have been very shaky. I mean, look what they did with the standalone Hulk movie. It was okay, but it wasn't a hit, and they needed to make a couple of more Iron Mans that just continued to blow up. That third one was a little iffy, but by that point, like, we were all hooked into the universe that Marvel was creating. And man, what a fun ride. So with this latest event that they hosted, people talk about MCU being dead. No one really want to watch it anymore. And millions of eyes on a screen just to watch someone name on the back of a chair lets you know the MCU is right and in the best position to continue to move forward. And I look forward to what the Russo brothers do with the next 2 Avenger movies. There's a couple movies that come out between then and now. I'm okay on them. I'll go watch them. Thunderbolts looks like it's going to be a fun movie. Fantastic Four looks like it's going to be a fun movie, but I'm really really looking forward to the next Avengers movie.
Yeah, me too. I'll tell you, I am personally very excited for Fantastic Four. I think that's a property that still has not gotten a fair shake at the movie theater. That if they do it right, it's going to be phenomenal. I mean, there's a reason those characters were bought, first. I mean, those characters were bought away from Marvel at the same time as Spider-Man was, is because the thinking was at the time the 3 most valuable properties they had were Spider-Man, X-Men, and Fantastic Four. And we've gotten good Spider-Man and good X-Men. We have not gotten good Fantastic Four. I'm really excited for that film. Here's what I want to say to your list, dude. I want to give your list credit. Something I decided in the last year or two, Age of Ultron and Civil War are both movies that when I saw them at the time, I was like, that underperformed for me. Both of them. I left the theater going, I wanted more. But when you watch it back within the context of the whole, you're correct. You said this about Ultron. They are great at setting up what had to happen next. And so in the arc of all the films, they work so well. And I thought that just a master stroke in writing in both of them. So I will give you that. And then here's the thing I always say about Iron Man, the movie. I just talked about Fantastic Four. You realize Iron Man came out less than a year after the Silver Surfer movie.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Compare those movies back to back.
Yeah.
That to me, because the other superhero movie that came out in 2008 is The Dark Knight. And Iron Man and The Dark Knight are very different styles of superhero movies.
Correct.
And they are both phenomenal in their own right. But if you think about the fact that Fantastic Four Silver Surfer came out months before Iron Man. The elevation, and I know those were different studios, but the elevation is really incredible. Like what Favreau found, and Jon Favreau, like Iron Man 2 was a flop. Favreau's had some misses, but Favreau single-handedly made the MCU possible, and I think he almost pulled the same stunt with the Mandalorian in Star Wars, and then Star Wars has just completely lost its way, but we don't have time to get into all that. So,
well, I would say that it's really interesting that Silver Surfer came out. I watched that movie. I'm a comic book guy, but it was an entertaining movie, but it wasn't a great movie.
It's not a good movie. Yeah.
And but I can tell you what was a great movie, and it was The Dark Knight. And Dark Knight up there with the best trilogies of all time.
Big time.
Lord of the Rings is up there, but when you think about a movie that almost had a perfect ending as well, a series or a trilogy, Bane was, I think Thanos is the best villain ever on TV. Now, I think there's some villains in comic books that are way better than Thanos.
Oh yeah.
Dr. Doom
Dr.
being
Doom.
one. Yeah, being one. Deathstroke. I mean, there's so many different people, Galactus, that were like reoccurring villains. Kang was really good, but we probably won't get to see him on script and on film like we got to see him in comic books. But Batman and Superman, DCU's been trying to figure that out. And they have it, and they're restarting it with James Gunn, who led the Guardians of the Galaxy movie movement. But I think Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy with Christian Bale is the best, one of the best trilogies of all time. And Bane being the number 2 villain of all time.
I have a take, and I'm gonna give it to you. And then we're going to conclude the show because we've been at it almost 2.5 hours now, way longer than I intended, but it's been good.
Well, I jumped off for a little bit. So,
but listen, I'm going to give you my take, and let's debate it next week if you want. If you want, and if people like the comic book geeky stuff, we'll bring it back next week. I have this opinion that I formed that I feel pretty strongly about, and most people react badly to it. The Dark Knight trilogy is a masterclass in filmmaking, without question. And I'm a Christopher Nolan huge fan.
Yeah.
I think The Batman is a much better Batman movie than any of them. That's my take. I thought Matt Reeves' The Batman was the best Batman movie. And the more I watch it, the more I think it is. Even more than The Dark Knight. That's my take.
We'll see what they do with the next one. I did like The Batman. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was dark, like the Batman story.
The Gotham that was portrayed in that movie is on point. And if anybody watched The Penguin, which was just the spinoff of that, so good, bro.
I mean, they have, if you think about it, the DCU has a ton of great characters to build a universe around, and they've just missed. I mean, so many great characters, so many great villains, and they just
and now the problem is, like, the only one they've gotten right multiple times is Batman.
Yeah,
they got Batman well. They did it well with Keaton. They've done it well with Christian Bale. They're doing it well with Pattinson. And now the problem is, the reason that Batman movie with Pattinson is so good is they explicitly said, like, this isn't going to connect to the DCU, but now they're fighting about that. So anyway, we can geek about that for hours, but
yeah, I agree. I don't know where they go from there. I thought Superman was a good movie. I think it came out in 14 or 15 or so.
Man of Steel.
Yeah, I think it was. I thought it was a good movie. And then the Justice League, Wonder Woman was the first one was great when I watched it and experienced it. But as I went back, I'm like, man, it's such a weird movie. And then Wonder Woman 1984 was the worst movie ever.
It was bad.
And so I don't know. I think you got some really Aquaman, Blue Beetle. I mean, there's so much stuff in the DCU, and they just I don't know. They got, maybe they should build it around the villain like they did with the Penguin. I mean, build it around that guy. And I think one of my biggest critics with Marvel is that we didn't see more of Thanos on his journey. I would have loved to see Thanos at his prime when he beams back to the ship and he has a Nebula hostage. Well, not yet. She hasn't a hostage yet, but like she has the dysfunction and he's wiping off his sword with. I want to see where he just came from. That's what I want to see.
Listen, no, and Terrence, you've nailed it. We were talking earlier about villains, Doctor Doom, Galactus. You know for a fact those two are going to be in films in the next year for Marvel. Yeah. And I am going to be really disappointed if those are the only appearances for those villains. Because those are both villains that are supposed to be consistent threats. Like Doctor Doom in the comics is essentially, I can take over the world whenever I want, and then it's so mindless I get bored. Like he is so anyway.
Well, I mean, with the Galactus, we should see Silver Surfer, but I don't know if we're going to see him.
I know what they're doing with that. I don't know. Do you want me to tell you?
No, not yet. Not yet.
All right. They've like low key said what they're doing in that regard. But
well, I mean, we'll see Galactus this summer with Fantastic Four.
Yep.
So
all right, bro. Anything else before we get out of here?
Man, I appreciate all the hard work you put in. Like I say every week, man, it's a pleasure to do business with you. Let me know what we're going to talk about next week. And then listen, I am still upset that a running back did not make the Sweet 16, but I get it when these fans only see things for clicks. Anyways, I digress. Listen, thanks, Scotty. I don't have anything else.
Hey, we got a lot of good content today. We'll clip it up, put it all over YouTube. Hey, man, I don't say this a lot, but if you are watching to this point, like and subscribe, share with a friend, follow us on Twitter. Like all those things really do help. This thing's kind of off, just frankly, from a content perspective. We're off to a slower start in terms of subscribers and engagement, and that's cool because I think the real fun comes in August when football season starts, and that's what Terrence and I are here for. But it really does help if you're already in with the show. Go vote, share, let your friends know. Like I think Terrence and I really value the conversation and want this to be a space for Baylor fans to get the best, just one-stop shop every week for Baylor football content and discussion. And we will keep brainstorming over the summer how to make it engaging this fall so that you can participate as much or as little as you want. So for Terrence Ganaway, my friend, thanks so much for your time, man. For Pete Souza, who was here earlier, for our sponsors, Southern Roots, Primetime Pets, Fabled, and who am I forgetting right behind me? Dichotomy. My friends at Dichotomy. How could I forget? My name's Scotty Stringler. Thank you guys so much. We will see you same time next week. This has been, please bear with me, Sick 'em Bears. We'll talk to you next week. If my mouse will work.
We are Rogue Media Sports.